Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and to another video. So today I'm gonna do an Arch install with the April 2021 ISO, which was released yesterday, and I'm gonna use the BTRFS file system on 2 SSDs and LVM on other 2 SSDs. So I decided to mix actually both because many of you were interested also in having LVM in this video. So what I did, I connected already my main PC here and I booted up the Arch ISO and I logged in via SSH. So I'm going to switch here now to my laptop so that you can see also what's going on here in the terminal. And you can see here I have on my terminal, so I need to log in into my desktop here via SSH. So I can see my monitor in front of me. I'm sorry you cannot see that, but I see here the IP address. So I'm going to type in here SSH and then root at 192.168.178. And the last number is 55. Then I'm going to type in yes here and enter the root password that I gave to the root user. And you can see now I am in my desktop machine. So it's nice, we have a new graphic here and it's telling us to authenticate, use the iwctl command. For mobile broadband, use the mmcli, and for Ethernet it should work out of the box. So let's go ahead and clean up our terminal. So let me type in lsblk here. So this is the scenario. You can see here I have SDA, SDB, and 2 NVMe drives. SDC is the Arch ISO. So what I'm going to do here before starting the installation, I'm going to clean up my disks so that you can see also how it's done. And that means I'm going to remove the LVM that I have already in place, and I'm going to remove the partitions, and I'm going to create new partitions for the new installation. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to clean up the terminal and type in vg remove. And the name of the volume group I have right now, it's VG data. So I'm going to remove this volume group and it asks me, do you really want to remove it? I will type in Y here. And therefore I want to remove also the logical volume, which is called LV data. So Y and hit enter. And so the volume group and the logical volume are now gone. So if I type in here now again lsblk, you can see SDA1 and SDB don't have anymore the LVM. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to recreate the partitions in SDA and SDB first. These are 2 SSD drives, M2 SSD drives, are not NVMe drives. So let me type in gdisk/dev/SDA, and I'm going to create a new GPT label. This is going to delete all the partitions, and as you can see there. And now I'm going to recreate the partition I need for my LVM afterwards. So N for new here, partition number 1 default is fine. First sector is also fine here. The last sector defines the size, but I want to use the whole disk anyway. And the code here, it's going to be 8E00. This is the code for the Linux LVM. And then I'm going to write the changes to the disk by typing in W and confirming with Y. There you go. So I'm going to repeat the same process with SDB. So I'm just going to replace here SDA with SDB. So O to create new labels and delete partitions. And then I'm going to create again just one partition here. So N for new, I'm going to accept all the defaults, and the code is 8E00 for Linux LVM, and W to write the changes to the disk, and Y to confirm. So it's now time to do the same also on my first NVMe drive. So gdisk and then /dev/NVMe0N1. This is the name of the first NVMe drive. So again, the same process. O to create a new GPT label. This is a UEFI machine, so I need to create a GPT label. And now I'm going to create here 3 partitions. I'm going to create the EFI partition because it's mandatory. It's a UEFI system. I'm going to create a swap partition and also a main partition. I'm not going to create a home partition because I'm going to have afterwards a BTRFS file system where I will have a home subvolume in there. So let me go ahead and create the first partition here with N for new. Default 1 is fine, first sector is fine, the last sector is the size, so I'm going to make the EFI partition plus 300 megabytes. And the code for the ESP is EF00. And you can see the EFI system partition. Next, I'm going to create a new partition. And default number 2 is fine, first sector is fine, the last sector defines the size, so for this swap I'm going to do 2 gigabytes, which should be enough. And the code for the swap is 8200 and hit enter. And you can see the Linux swap. Next, I'm going to create the last partition. So N for new. Partition number 3 is fine. First sector is fine. The last sector is fine as well. And the code is also fine. So I'm going to write the changes to the disk here and confirm with Y. And this is done. Now, I'm not going to create any partition on the second NVMe drive because I'm going to use there the whole disk in the BTRFS file system. So now that we created the partitions, we can begin formatting our NVMe drives. So let's begin with the EFI partition. So mkfs.fat. It has to be a FAT file system because it's a EFI system partition. -f32 and then /dev/nvme 0n1p1. That's the first partition I created with the EFI system type. Now let's create our swap. So mkswap on the second partition, so /dev/nvme 0n1p2. And you can see that it's saying wiping old swap signature. That's fine because I had another swap partition there before. And now we can activate this by typing in swap on and then /dev/nvme 0n1p2. Now let's go ahead and format our BTRFS file system. So mkfs.btrfs, and then this is going to be on /dev/nvme 0n1p3 and also on /dev/nvme 1n1, the whole drive. Now most likely I'm going to get an error here, and as you can see it's the case because I had already a file system in here. So I need to force this option by using the -f switch, and now it's working. So you can see here I have a file system size of almost 2 terabytes, and it's including NVMe 0n1p3 and NVMe 1n1. So this is done. We need to still create our logical volume for the other two disks. So because I already had a logical volume before there, those two devices are already defined as physical volumes. So I don't need to actually create the physical volumes because they're already there. But even you don't have physical volumes created, you can use anyway directly the volume group create command, because that will create also the physical volumes automatically. So I'm going to type in vg create, and I'm going to call my volume group vg data one more time. And this is going to be on /dev/sda1 and on /dev/sdb1, and hit enter. And you can see the volume group VG data has been successfully created. Now I can create my logical volume. So LV create and -n because I want to give it a name. I'm going to call my logical volume LV data, and the -l for defining the relative size is going to be 100% free. So I'm going to use the whole space on the volume group, which is called VG data. We just defined that before. Now it's telling me that I have a file system in there, which is fine. We can wipe it. And now the logical volume is created. Now we need to format this logical volume. So to do this, we can type in mkfs. And again, I'm going to use the XFS file system. And that's because in this logical volume, I'm going to actually storing and using quite big files. And I've seen actually with the XF file system, the performance on big files is actually pretty good. And so I'm going to use this on this machine. Now I'm going to use the -k option here to avoid discarding blocks, otherwise it's going to take much longer. And then I'm going to use this on /dev/mapper. I'm going to use the mapper name here because we are creating an LVM. We created an LVM. And then VG data, LV data, and then hit enter. So as you can see here now, the operation is now finished. So we created the partitions. We formatted them. Now we need to mount them. So we begin with our main partition, which is VDA3, and we're going to mount it on the MNT directory because it's our installation directory. So mount /dev/nvme 0n1p3 on /mnt, and then hit enter. So now we can move into the mount directory so that we can create our subvolumes. Now the subvolumes here are on the third partition of the first NVMe drive and on the whole second NVMe drive. So it doesn't matter actually which mount point you're going to use, you're using the whole file system. Now I'm going to type in here cd/mount. I could have done this also from the home directory, but less typing. So I'm going to create the first subvolume. So BTRFS subvolume create. And the first subvolume is the root subvolume, which is defined with the @mark, and hit enter. Now, because in this tutorial I'm going to install timeshift for the BTRFS file system, I can only create the root subvolume and the home subvolume. This is a limitation, if you will, of timeshift. It supports only the so-called Ubuntu structure, which is root and home only. So if you want to have more subvolumes, you will need then to use a snapper. So I'm going to create the home subvolume here by adding home and hit enter. And now I can go back to my root file system by typing in cd, and I can unmount the mount directory because we then need to remount the subvolumes with the options. So umount /mnt to unmount our directory. There you go. So now we can mount our subvolumes with the options we want. So mount -o for options. So the first option I'm going to use is no A time. So by default, the BTRFS file system will set the rel A time option. And I'm going to use the no A time because I'm going to actually, or if you are also probably going to access many times your files on the system, there's going to be a lot of copy on write operations, and that is going to decrease a little bit the performance of the system. So with the no access time, we are going to increase the performance of the system. Then I'm going to use the compress, and I'm going to use as a compression type for this video ZSTD. And the reason is I found out actually ZSTD works really well on my machine, and by default it's going to use the level 3, which is the default one, and it's good enough for me. If you want more in-depth infos about the level compression levels for ZSTD or the other methods for compression, I will do a separate video for that because it's a much longer topic. And then I'm going to use the space_cache option equal version 2. Now, why I'm using version 2 here? Version 2 is actually performing better if you have huge storage devices. So if you have terabytes and terabytes of storage. No, I don't have that yet here, but I might, because I can insert in my PC here bigger drives. And if I add those drives to the BTRFS file system, having the space cache version 2 already in place, it's an advantage for me as it performs better in time on large storage devices. And then I'm going to use also the discard option equal async to increase also the performance of my SSD. Now BTRFS will recognize automatically now that I have an SSD, and it will add it to the options anyway. And the discard option is going to improve the performance of the SSD as you can see on the note below. Then I'm going to use subvol equal @mark to define the root subvolume, which is going to be on /dev/nvme 0 and 1 p3, and the mount point was /mnt, and then I can hit enter. There you go. So we mounted the root subvolume here using our options. We defined the block device and where to mount it. Now, before I mount the home subvolume, I need to create the directory for it and also the directory for the boot partition. So mkdir -p/mnt, and then I'm going to create boot and /EFI. So for the boot partition, I'm going to mount it there afterwards. And I'm going to create also mkdir /mnt/ and then I'm going to open the curly brace, and I'm going to create here the home directory and also the data directory. This is going to be for my LVM, and then hit enter. So now I can pull up the last two commands here for the mount points, and I'm going to basically add here at home, and as a mount point I'm going to also add here /home, which I just created before, and then hit enter. So next I can mount my EFI partition, so mount /dev/nvme 0 and 1 p1. This is our EFI partition on /mnt/boot/EFI, and hit enter. And I'm going to mount also my data, my LVM into the data directory. So mount /dev/mapper/vgdata-lvdata on /mnt/data, and then hit enter. There you go. So lsbk, you can see we have our mount points there, so we are ready to install the base packages. So let's go ahead and do that. Packstrap. We are packstrapping into /mnt, our installation directory, and I'm going to install the base package, the Linux kernel, the Linux-firmware package, and then I'm going to install also Git and Vim, and also AMD-U code because I have an AMD processor in here, and also the BTRFS-procs utility because I'm not sure it's going to be installed automatically afterwards, and then I can hit enter. So this is going to take a moment to download the packages and install them. This is just the base, basically just the base packages with the Linux kernel and a few utilities. Then afterwards we are going to generate the file system table with our mount points, and we are going to then move into the installation using the archroot command. And I'm going to make sure that the fstab file is correctly configured because I have a lot of mount points in there. So the packages are now installed. So let's clean up the terminal and generate the file system table. So gen fstab -U. We are going to use the UUIDs of the block devices to create the fstab file. And we are going to use the information we have on /mnt on our installation directory. And we are going to append this information to the /mnt, so inside the installation, into the etc directory and into the fstab file. Now we can move into the installation itself. So arch root and then /mnt. And I want to check my fstab file just to make sure that everything is correctly set. So cat /etc/fstab. And as you can see here, I have my root subvolume, I have my EFI partition, my home subvolume, my data LVM here, and my swap partition. So everything looks good. And we can clean up the terminal and proceed now by downloading my repository, where I have the kind of a script for the install, for the base install, and also for my BSPWM files. So I'm going to type in git clone and then https:// and then gitlab.com/ef/linux /arch install /base and then hit enter. And I will need to identify here and enter my password. And I'm downloading now my repository. So let me clean up the terminal and go in there, cd and then arch install base and ls-l. And you can see there I have my base shell script, kind of a shell script. And that's the one I actually need right now. So let me actually look in there to see if there is something I need to change. So vim base.sh. And here you can see I have the usual commands to create the locales and everything else. So nothing special here. I have to uncomment my AMD graphic card drivers because I need to have those in place. And I can actually remove here the TLP service because this is useful on a laptop, but not so much here on a desktop machine. So I can remove this, and I think everything else looks good. So I can save this file and exit Vim. And then I can make this script executable. So chmod +x on base.sh. And I'm going to go back to the root file system here and run it from there. So / and then arch install base and then base.sh. So it's generating the locales. It's going to install now the main packages for my system. And then it's going to install the grab bootloader. And it's going to create the user for my system, which is the user with my name and my privileges as a sudo user. And then at the end, it's going to enable all the services we need for our system, including Bluetooth, the CAP service for the printers, and etc., etc. So this is not going to take long. We are already here by updating the module dependencies. We need to still also work on the mkinitcpio.com file because we are using BTRFS and an AMD card. So now it's installing grub and it enabled now everything else. So it looks good. We can clean up the terminal and work on our mkinitcpio.com file. So let me type in vim /etc/mkinitcpio.conf. Now here I'm going to put under the modules the BTRFS option, and that's because I'm using 2 block devices for BTRFS. And that's the recommendation that we have on the ArchWiki. It's to put the BTRFS here as a module instead of as a hook. So I'm going to put it in here. And I'm going to put also here AMD GPU for my graphic card. And because we are using LVM, I'm going to also add here into the hook section, just before file systems, I'm going to put it in here, LVM2. There you go. And LVM2 is already installed, by the way. So then we can save the file and exit Vim. And we need to recreate the image. So mkinitcpio-p on Linux kernel. So this is going to take a moment to rebuild. And then after this, I think we can reboot our machine and see what's happening. So there you go. So we can type it in here, exit, and umount -a. And now I can reboot the machine by typing in reboot. And of course, I will lose here the connection, but I can see my main machine is booting up. Now I'm just doing this live with you guys. So let's see if the grab bootloader is correctly appearing, and then I can start my machine from there. And if so, then we will be greeted by the TTY, where we can continue then the installation of our window manager. So machine is booting up now, and let's see if grub comes up. And I have grub here, so I can hit enter to start the machine, and we should be greeted in a second by the TTY. And I have the TTY there. So I need to log in with my username there because I don't know the IP address of my machine. So let me do this very quickly. I'm really sorry that you cannot see this. And okay, I see there my IP. So I can log in now by typing in SSH and then hermano. This time I'm logging in with my user 192.168.178.184. So I need to type in yes here and enter my password. And I'm back in my desktop machine. So first thing first, let's copy over our repository from the root file system into my home directory. So cp-r on the repository, which is on my in the root file system, and we're gonna copy it here in my home directory by using the dot. Now ls-l, and you can see I have my arch install base repository now here in my home directory with the correct permissions. So let me move in there. So cd on arch install base, and I know I have a directory in here called BSPWM, and then ls-l again, and actually better ls-la. There you go. So you can see here I have my configuration file. So BSPWMRC, I have a shell script for the packages for BSPWM, but it's the shell script is not yet working. So I have it there just for reference for my packages. We have the polybar directory, we have the dot profile, the sxrc file for the key bindings, and the x resources also for my terminal and other things. So what I need to do here, I'm gonna go first into my script. So let me type in vim bspwm.sh. So you can see the script here is basically going to enable the network time protocol, synchronizing the two clocks, creating a mirror list, opening the firewall ports, the usual stuff. It's going to install the PKUR, and I'm not going to install yet these packages that I need. I'm going to do them after manually. And then it's going to install the main packages for the window manager. So I have several here. I have also several fonts, and I'm going to tell you afterwards why. I'm not going to install Spotify and Kdenlive for now. I need to enable the Lightdm display manager, but I'm not going to create automatically these directories. I'm going to do this manually afterwards. And the same goes for these two commands, which are useful only if I am installing from the wiki directly. So I think this is all there is to it here. So I can actually run this script. And first I need to make it executable. So chmod plus x on bspwm.sh. There you go. So I'll go back to my home directory and run it from here, /arch, and then bspwm and bspwm.sh. Need to enter my sudo password, and first it's going to create the mirror list and opening the firewall ports. You can see it's already starting up. Now it's installing the PKUR, which is not a big package, and now we are waiting to install the main packages. So I put a small break here so that I can see what's going on. And now it's installing the main packages. So I have actually not that many packages, but I do actually install a lot of fonts, and that's because I'm working with several languages, and especially the Asian fonts, they take quite much space. They're quite big fonts, but I need to install them, otherwise I won't be able to work with certain websites. So that's why I have them there. So the download is finished. Now it's installing the packages, which is not gonna take too long. You can see we are almost at the end. Now it's installing the fonts and recreating the font cache. There you go. So the install is basically done. Now what we need to do, we need to install the packages we need from the AUR. So to install those packages, we can type in pick AUR-S. So the first one is the Lightdm-slick-greeter. And the slick greeter, if you're not familiar with, is the greeter that you find on Linux Mint. It's a nice greeter, and it has also the option with for high DPI displays out of the box, which is very convenient for me because I have a 4K display. And I'm going to install also Lightdm-settings, which is the GUI for the slick greeter. I'm going to install, of course, also Polybar. And I'm going to install also the Nerd Fonts Yosefka, which is a font needed in Polybar for some of the things, for some of the text and some of the icons. And I'm going to install also TTF Ico Moon Feather. This is a font with icons for Polybar. Some of the icons are using this. And we're going to install also a time shift. And I think we have everything we need. So we can hit enter here. And I need to check these options. So I'm going to accept the defaults here. And I don't need this one neither. And just need to check these just to make sure that everything is correct. That's good. That's also good. And that's also fine. There you go. So now it's building the packages. So this is going to take some time because Polybar is quite a big package to compile. So it's going to take a couple of minutes. So I'm going to pause the video here, guys, for the first time, and I'm going to be back with you when it's finished. So here we go, guys. The packages are now installed. So let's clean up the terminal, and I'll go again into my repository. So cd arch install base and then BSPWM. So ls-l, oh, I think I made it smaller. There you go. And actually ls-la, I always forget the A, there you go. So what we need to do here, we need to move in place many things. And I think instead of talking, I'm just gonna do the stuff, which is better. So let's go back to the home directory here, and I'm gonna create first the directories I need for my window manager. So mkdir.config, and I'm gonna create here the BSPWM, the sxhkd directory, and also the dunst directory. Dunst is a service, notification service. You're going to see it probably later when we are on the desktop. I'm going to create these three directories here, where these directories will contain configuration files. So then I can hit enter. So now I'm going to move the configuration files in there. So cp, and then on my repository, BSPWM and BSPWM RC. It's going to be copied over to config and BSPWM. Same for the second one, cp on my repository, BSPWM, and then sxrc on .config and then sx. And for the dunst, I need to copy this over from the system because it has been installed. So cp/user/share/dunst and then dunst-rc under config and then dunst. There you go. Now I need to set the proper permissions for the two configuration files for BSPWM. So chmod 755 on .config BSPWM and BSPWM-RC, and also chmod 644 on .config on SX and SXRC. There you go. Now I need to move over also the Polybar directory. So cp-r, I'm going to make it recursive because I have a lot of stuff in there. On the repository, BSPWM and Polybar. And I'm going to copy this over to the .config directory and hit enter. There you go. I need to copy over here, over my home directory, the .profile and the .x resources. So let me type in here cp arch install base and then BSPWM and then .profile. And I'm going to copy it over here with the dot. And I'm going to do the same here by just replacing the .profile with the x resources. There you go. So I'm going to also make a copy of the pycom.com file. So pycom is our compositor. And I'm going to make a copy here in my config directory because I need to change some things in there. So cp/etc/xdg/pycom.conf. It's going to be under .config here. There you go. So I need to configure this a little bit. So vim.config.pycom.conf. And what I'm looking for here is the delta. No, actually not the delta. It's the fade in step and out step. So Pycom by default will have a fading effect when you switch workspaces, which I don't like personally. So the problem is if you turn off this fading here, that's going to be only for opening and closing windows, but not for the workspaces. So what I need to do here, if I want to achieve that effect, I need to step in here and put the 1 and remove this number. So to make it basically not fade. And I'm going to do the same here for the fade out effect, or to 1. And I'm going to do also here, I'm going to look for the wind types. And I'm going to take off opacity, or better said transparency, for the pop-up menus and the drop-down menus. So I'm going to replace this also with 1. And I'm going to do the same also for the drop-down menu. And I think that's it for Pycom for now. So I can save this one. And the last thing I need to do actually before rebooting the machine is to also configure my Lightdm display manager, because I'm using a different greeter than the standard one. So let me type in here sudo vim/etc/lightdm/lightdm.conf. And what I need to do here, I need to look for the seed group down here. And I need to change the greeter session, because by default, this is going to look for the GTK greeter, which I didn't install. If you install that, you don't need to change this option. But if you did, if you're using another greeter, you need to change it. So I'm going to put it in here, lightdm-slick greeter. And then I need to change also the user session, because with the default option, it's not going to work with BSPWM. So I'm going to replace this with BSPWM. And of course, I have to also remove the hashtag here, so that I can log into my session. Otherwise, the slick greeter will not work with BSPWM. So I think this is all there is for now. Let me check if the display manager is enabled, which I think it is. Status Lightdm. And I can see, yes, it's enabled. It's of course not started, but it's enabled. That means next time I start the machine, it's going to be started automatically. So I think for the main configuration, it's done. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to reboot the machine, and I'm going to log in there, install OBS there, and I'm going to do the rest of the video from my main computer. So I'm going to pause the video here, guys, and I'll be back with you in a second. So here we go, guys. We are now in my new installation with BSPWM. So let's check if everything works correctly. Let's open up the terminal with mod enter. And you can see that I have URXVT starting up fine with the correct resolution. Now, I don't have much of a customization yet, but we can change this very quickly. So let me open up the menu with the mod enter, with mod space, sorry, and then LX appearance. And I'm going to choose here the arc dark menu and the arc icons. There you go, and click apply. And I'm going to also install a wallpaper. So nitrogen is also here. So I'm going to select preferences, add a directory here, and go to the file system and go down to user, share, and then backgrounds, because I already installed the Arch Linux wallpapers here, and click OK. I mean, they come already pre-installed with the base install I did. And I'm going to choose this wallpaper, which I like quite a lot, and zoomed fill is good. And this is going to be only on display number 1, and click apply. There you go. And I have my wallpaper here, and you can see transparency on URXVT is also working fine. So let's go ahead and configure our time shift. So let's type in here sudo. We could actually do this also in the terminal, but we have also a GTK GUI for time shift. So time shift -GTK. Just we need to authenticate here, and we have the wizard. So it's a BTRFS file system. This is great. So I'm going to select here my main partition, because I have plenty of space here, and the snapshot levels are fine for me. So I'm just going to click next, and I'm going to enable the BTRFS queue groups. Now I'm not going to include the home subvolumes. This is also recommended from the project because time shift is meant actually to snapshot only system files. If you want to back up your home data, use another tool. This is also a recommendation from the GitHub project. And then click next and click finish. And we can move this to a bigger workspace so that we can see better. So I have here my time shift. Now I can see it's not using the correct drive here. So let me close this up once and restart it again and go back here. Now it's using the correct one. So I can create a snapshot, and you can see there it takes literally 1 second. This is the great thing about BTRFS. So I can click here, click browse, and I can scroll through it if I have to. So this is done. And let's see, the next thing I would like to configure my Lightdm slick greeter. So sudo lightdm-settings. And again, I'm going to move this to another workspace. There you go. So I'm going to select a background. And again, I'm going to go here to file system, user, share, backgrounds. And I'm going to select again the one that I like, this one right here. And let's see, GTK theme, I'm going to select Arch Dark, and for the icon, the arc icon. So, and then users, better said settings, you can see here I have a high DPI support, which is automatic. I will go here with enable. The numlock X option is grayed out because I don't have the numlock X package installed. So I can install this and then I can use this eventually. I will do later, and I can remove here the host name, accessibility, power and keyboard. I don't need this, and that looks good to me. So next, well, this is the usual configuration I do when I install now BSPWM or any actually desktop environment. So the next thing I would do here is to check also for my home server. So I can actually open up Nautilus here. I wanted to install Nemo, but I forgot to change the package. Okay, next time. So you can see here what happens. Now, if I click here on the Arch, this is the Arch ISO. If I eject this, watch what happens on the top right corner of the screen. This is Dunst. This is the notification system I was telling you about. So this is going to appear every time that you are doing something like this, or you're listening to music and changing tracks or getting emails and stuff like that. So it's already there. You can go into the configuration file that we copied over from the system and customize it if you like. Now, if I go to other locations here, you can see because I have the Avahi daemon up and running, it discovers the shares I have available in my network. But if I double click here, you can see it says there is an error in resolving the name. And that's because Avahi is using by default the hostname.local resolution, which is not working always. So this is something documented in the Arch wiki. So what we can do, we can correct this behavior by opening up Firefox. And let me go here, well, actually, let me close this window and not now. And I can type Avahi Arch, and we can explore here. Well, actually, let me go here to English. And let's see. So you can see here, it says you need to install the Avahi package and activate the daemon service, which I did. And we need to install also the NSS MDNS, which I did also because it was inside of the packages I installed. But to change this behavior, we need to add this line into the NS switch configuration file. So let me copy this and open up a terminal here and type in sudo vim/etc/ns switch. Enter my sudo password. And I need to enter this under the hosts here before the resolve parameter with shift insert, make a space, and then I can save this and exit Vim, and I need to restart the Avahi daemon. So sudo systemctl restart avahi-daemon.service. There you go. So I can close this again, and let me close also Firefox. If I open again Nautilus here, and I go to other locations now, if I double click, you can see I can access my shares. So I can enter here with my username and my password, remember, and I'm going to be asked to enter one password for the keyring here, which is just one time. And now I'm logged into my home server. So I can go, for example, to my home here, my drive, and I can put this here into my bookmarks. Now, the next thing, what we need to do here is to take care of our logical volume. So if I go under computer here, you can see I have the data directory, which I created, and my logical volume is mounted here. Problem is, if I right click here, I don't have any access. I cannot create anything. And that's because we don't have the correct permissions. So let me close this and open up the terminal. And let me type in here sudo chown and then hermano:hermano. So I'm going to change the ownership of the data directory so that it belongs to me. And I need to enter my sudo password, and I'm going to change also the permissions. So sudo chmod 750 on data. And there you go. So if I close this and open again Nautilus, let me see again to other locations, computer and data. And you can see now I can create my folder. So I can grab this and put it in here, for example, as a new bookmark, and I can rename it data. There you go. So next I need to configure also my printer. So open up Firefox, and I'm going to use the CUPS printing system for that. So localhost :631. This is the address where CUPS is listening to. And you can see it's somehow not working. So that's not good. We need to troubleshoot this. So let's open up the terminal and type in here systemctl status cups.service. See what happens here. Oh, I see it's loaded, but it's not actually active, which should be because I actually think I did that, or maybe I didn't. Okay, so I need to enable this. I need to enable this now. So let me do this by typing in sudo system ctl start and then cups.service, and need to authenticate again. And now if I check the status, it's up and running. So we can close this and reload our page, and now I can go into cups and go to administration. I need to add a printer, and I need to authenticate here as a root user, and I don't need to save the password. So it's going to look for my, I think I mistyped the password there. There you go. And it's going to look for my network printer, which I have here on my network. It's going to take a moment to do that. There you go. I need to install this one with the connotation with the letters and click continue. And for these options, I'm going to select the defaults here. And next, I will have to probably change the driver. So I'm going to select the HP cups here and add printer. And for the media size, I'm going to select the European A4 because that's the one I have here, and click set default options. And once this is set, then the printer is configured successfully. There you go. And this is now done. So let me close this up. So we configured already several things here. Now let me show you some of the configuration files. So let me type in here vim.config, then BSPWM and BSPWM-RC. So you can see here I have the keyboard layout which loads up when I boot the window manager. I have the light locker. This is the screensaver. So I tried actually to install better lock screen in here on BSPWM. When I did this some months ago, it worked. Now it doesn't work anymore. I don't know why exactly. I couldn't investigate that yet. But I'm using light locker. This is basically taking the greeter that you have on Lightdm and set it as a screen locker. And then I'm having Dunst opening up. I have my Polybar launching. I have Nitrogen restore to restore my wallpaper, Xrender to output the correct display resolution, and PyCom no fading close, open close for taking off the fading effect when you are closing and opening windows. For example, if I open up another terminal, you can see here there is no fading effect. And even I switch workspaces here, you can see I have no fading. I have transparency, but I have no fading, which is for me perfect. Then I have a rule here which says my first 5 workspaces that you see up here are in DisplayPort 0, which is the one you're seeing here. And I have the, workspace 6 on my second DisplayPort, which is on my right here where OBS is running. And I have no border width and the window gap is 12. Then I have some rules for some applications. So this is what I like about BSPWM, is that it's extremely simple to configure. i3 is also fairly simple, but BSPWM probably it's even simpler. You just have to add your BSPC rule-a to add a rule, and then you define the property of the application, the desktop, the state, whether it's floating, and if you want to follow or not. Now, GIMP, it's not installed yet, but I will because I use it sometime for a little photo editing. I have Firefox opening up on desktop number 2 and Spotify on desktop number 5 and Virt Manager on desktop number 4. And it's floating, as well as Nautilus is also floating, but it doesn't have any desktop because I want it to be flexible on every desktop I use. Speaking of Virt Manager, actually, we need to check this because there is something we need to change. So let me boot that up, Virt-Manager. You can see the penguin up there is blue, so let's go there. And you can see we have KVM basically here up and running. So the thing is, this is working, but we need to enable the virtual network, which is not enabled by default. So let me close this shortly and open up the terminal. And we need to switch to the root user. So su dash, and then I need to authenticate. And so we can start the virtual network here by typing in virsh and then net dash start and then default. And it's going to start now. But every time when you reboot the machine like this, you'll have to start it manually, or KVM is going to ask you, do you want to start it? So to make this enable automatically, we can also use virsh and then net dash auto start and then default. And you can see their network default marked as auto started. So when you boot the machine, it's going to be started automatically for you. And then we can exit this. And let me close this. And if I pull up again Virtual Machine Manager here, you can see it's, like I said before, it's a floating window, so I can open it everywhere I want, but usually it's here on workspace number 4. Now let's go back here And again, this is not final. I'm still working on this file. I'm just using BSPWM now since just maybe 1 week. So I'm still gonna add other applications here, but it's not yet finished. Now, the other file I want to show you is the key bindings file. So vim.config and then sx and sxrc. So here I have a key binding to hide the polybar. Sometimes I need to do this when I do, for example, the live webinars on Patreon. So super Y, and you can see the polybar is gone, but it leaves the padding here. So I run with super capital Y, this command here to remove that. And now I am full screen. And to get my polybar back, I use this key binding, so super and the letter P again, and my polybar is back again. So then I have the typical standard shortcuts here for BSPWM, so nothing special here. I added here at the end some shortcuts for some key bindings for Spotify, so super shift space, play and pause, super shift right, play the next track, super shift left the previous track, and then lower, raise and mute for the toggle for my keyboard for the volume. The brightness controls, but not really useful on my desktop machine. Super X for the light locker for locking the screen, Super Alt B for Firefox, and Super Alt S for screenshotting. So I will surely also add here more of these commands, but for now this is all I have. So let me get out from here, and I want to show you also the polybar. So you can see here on top I have these 5 workspaces, and I have here in the middle the date. I have the updates for Arch, for which I had to install the pacman contrib package from the main repository. I have the load of the PC, now it's quite high, and also the RAM usage is quite high because I have OBS here running in 4K. I have the total space of my BTRFS file system. This is not the LVM, just the BTRFS file system. I could actually add here, I will probably add here also the LVM later. And I have my volume toggle here that I can use my keyboard here to change the volume, you can see. And I have my system menu here where I can shut down or restart my computer. So let me show you where all these files are. So cd.config and then polybar. So if I type in ls-l, you can see I have several themes here. So this is actually a theme. These are themes I downloaded from a GitHub repository, to which I will leave a link in the video description below. This guy made several themes for polybar, and they're really nice theme, nicely designed. What I did, I picked actually one of these themes, which is the forest theme, and I customized it a little bit differently using a different font and a little bit different icons and displaying different modules. So I did actually a video on polybar, several videos on polybar on the channel. If you want more in-depth information also about the modules and the configuration, you can look in there. And then you can compare to what we have in this repository to see how you can configure it. So for example, if I go into the forest theme here, ls-l again, you can see we have several INI files, configuration files. So the main one is the config INI. So vim config INI. And this is the main configuration file for polybar. So here you have the global VM. And then down here, I actually changed the fonts, for example. I changed the icons. I set also different modules here for the modules. I turn off the tray because I don't use it. But you can change here anything you want to change. It's fairly simple. Then once you have the main configuration, you can choose also to customize your modules. So vim modules.ini. And here you have several modules, like, if you've seen also the other videos I did, you have also there the modules that you can select and you can customize them. So for example, here you have the ALSA module. Down here, I think you have another one, I think it's the backlight, and then you have the battery. So this might be a little bit more useful if you have a laptop, for example. You have also, let me check here what you have down here, a little bit faster. You have here, for example, you see the CPU module, which I'm using. You have also the date module, which I'm using, and many others. So you can go in here and change them up to reflect what what is your taste for those modules. And then you have also the user modules. So vim user modules INI. These are extra modules. So for example, I'm using the updates module here for checking Arch updates. And there are many others here. Let me see, don't remember exactly. So we have the launcher, which I actually deactivated because I really like to have a minimal polybar anyway. The sys menu, I'm using it. This is the one you see on the top right. We have the color switch, which is also deactivated. I have the separator. This is the one between the modules there. I have apps, term, and files. These are all deactivated. So you can really have a lot of fun in here. Go in there and see the modules and you know, activate them or deactivate them or change them up the way you want to. So I will leave a link to this repository in the video description so that you can explore it for yourself if you don't know it already. So let me get out of here. And I think this is actually all that I wanted to show you. We have everything set up. We have timeshift, we have the Lightdm slick reader set up, we have the printer set up, we have everything set up, I think, the way I want to. So actually this is what I wanted to show you with this video. So we covered here the basic install of Arch using the April ISO. We installed it with the BTRFS File System, timeshift, logical volumes, the Lightdm display manager, slick reader, and many other things. So it was a long video. And if you have any questions about it, let me know in the comments below. As usual, I will try to answer you as soon as I can. And let me remind you also that on April 10th, this is on Saturday, April 10th, at 6 p.m. Central European Time, I will make a live stream finally. I haven't done this in a very long time. I'm really sorry about that, guys. But Saturday, 10th April, 6 p.m. Central European Time, I will be online for you. We can have a chat together. You can ask me any question you want to ask me, and I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope to see many of you there. So I hope you liked the video, guys. If you did, please hit the thumbs up and subs to the channel if you haven't already. Subs always help me out. And if you want to support my work, you can do so by becoming a Patreon. As you probably already know, on Patreon, I'm doing now a live webinar once a month where we are focusing on a topic about Linux. And if you want, you can also donate via PayPal through my website as well. Thank you so much for watching the video, guys. I really appreciate that, and I'll see you very soon in the next one.